Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Andy Serling. Big day for the 3-year-olds as we have a big, amazing card headlined by the Fountain of Youth.
What a difference a year makes.
Yes.
This is the year anniversary of a major storm that put 10 inches of rain at Gulfstream, and it's the exact opposite. We've had spectacular weather all week, and it's really just a perfect day and the kind of day you really want to have for a card like this, because this is a great card with just many, many opportunities on it.
You couldn't have asked for a better day weather-wise. You couldn't have asked for a better day handicapping-wise as well. I know I hit the books a few days ago, and I haven't really picked my head up since, so it's really plenty of opportunities to make money on this card and plenty of opportunities to see some really talented horses today as well. As a horse player, as a racing fan, you really love days like this.
No, I totally agree. We've been looking forward to it for a long time, and sometimes you get days you're looking forward to, and for whatever reasons they don't really come together as well. But this is not one of those days. This is just a great card of racing, big fields all day long, good horses throughout the day, and a lot of opportunities we said, and lots of multi-race plays, a lot of some carryovers in there. Just what more could you want?
Not much. We'll get to those featured wagers and our carryovers today, and it all starts off in today's first race. We do have a carryover in that rolling super high five, just over $5,000. Race 1 also does kick off our early 50-cent pick 5 as we get into the latter half of the card. Race 8 kicks off our 20-cent rainbow pick 6 at carryover, just shy of $1.9 million. As we get into races 9 and 10, we do have some guarantees today. In the late pick 4, we have $200,000 guarantee, and in the late pick 5, $100,000 guarantee as well. So plenty of betting opportunities here. Andy, we've got a lot to get through, so let's start it all off with the Texas Glitter. 5 furlongs of the turf. You have an early pick 5 ticket.
I do have an early pick 5 ticket, and I'm going to be in or out of it after the first leg. I am singling the 6. We'll get to why in just a few moments. I'm using 2 horse in the first 2. There's no question I'm taking some shots, with these 2 and get through the first 2 legs, though I do feel strongly about the first race, and then we'll go 4 by 4 by 3. I'm going to try to beat XYZ. I'm using them, but I'm using anyone else I feel has a legitimate chance in that race to win. Looking forward to talking about these races. And as far as the 6 no holding back Baron here, Gabby, my general feeling is this is a better, more talented horse than anybody in the race. He had trips, was chasing off of good rails in his races, running against better horses, running well in his recent efforts. He handled Synth in his first start. He's a half to a turf winner, so there's turf pedigree. The dam's a half to 2 turf winners. Put it back as a good enough turf sire for me. And if this horse takes the turf, I just think he's too good for these horses.
All the reasons that you mentioned there, I think, should make him extremely competitive. And the one thing about him, and I agree with you in your approach to the early pick 5, is it's either him or everybody, because it is kind of a tough race. You have horses who just recently broke their maidens, or it's kind of a crapshoot. And I agree with you. We have no holding back Bear, who is obviously very talented. He has the pedigree to maybe transition his form to a new surface. I like him in here. The only other horse that you have to really talk about is the 7 Manhattan Dan. And in the latter half of the season last year, they started to stretch him out to a route of ground, stretch him out in distance, and now Connections decided to cut him back. How much did kind of the late half of his season take out of him, and can he fire coming off the layoff?
Well, I'm not worried about that. I mean, he ran well as soon as he hit the turf early in his career. Whether or not he shows up with his best effort, I don't know off a layoff. But he was good last year, and he's a real rival to the 6. And if the 6 is going to lose fair and square to a horse in here, he's far and away the likeliest horse to do it.
He definitely is. I threw in a bomb in here, the 8 Drama Club, and I was just interested. There are plenty of horses who broke their maiden or maiden claimers that are actually going to be decently bet in here. The 3 Duffel Bag is probably one of them who I just can't get on. But the 8 Drama Club, again, I thought it was an okay race last time out at a big price. First time Lasix on the synthetic, and he was heavily bet when he did make his turf debut. I thought that was interesting. The barn doesn't do very well with these types of horses, but again, you can't, sometimes you just have to throw in some big bombs there into the mix. We'll move on to the second race on the card, a restricted allowance optional claiming event, 7 furlongs onto the main track. And this race I kind of had a tough time with because we have the likes of the 5 Holy Highway, Capital City, these horses who, or especially Capital City, who was a big winner last time out.
Yeah, this is not the kind of horse that I'm going to pick. Now, listen, I've liked him in the past. He was very good last time. I thought this stat was actually very interesting for Antonio Sano, who claimed him and got him to run one of his better efforts last time out. Coming off a win, second off a claim, so horses he's gotten to win in their first starts claim, they haven't come back and been effective. And he's 0 for 1 when he's moved them up 50% or more. It just feels like he got the good effort. I'm going to be surprised if he gets another one. But listen, if he runs his last race, he's a major player in here at the very least.
And I stuck with him because I just think he has the advantage at this distance, and he has that outside post position. He has a little bit of speed. He's coming out of good races. I know he is stepping up in class, but isn't it more of a lateral move here?
No. I think it's a tougher field.
After that last race?
I think it's, I don't, listen, those are some nice hard knockers in there, but I don't think, it's not, my question is, I'm not saying he can't beat these horses if he runs his last race. My feeling is coming back on very short rest off that race just 7 days ago, I'm going to be surprised when he runs back to that race. Listen, it's not like it can't happen. I won't be shocked if he beats me, but he's got to beat me in here.
The 9, Don Lupi, is one that you opt for, and I gave this horse some extra consideration. He is coming out of very tough races, always sunshine. We saw was very impressive in the Dave's Friend at Laurel. I think he got a 96 Spire speed figure for that victory. You see Majestic Affair, Cinco Charlie in the running lines as well.
Yeah, a couple things about his last effort. First of all, it appears that he was on a dead rail. So I think that's significant. It felt like a day at Park where people were racing well off the rail, and he was down on the inside. After that, as you said, always sunshine. I mean, here's a horse who won this race by 13 lengths. And when he won that race down at Maryland in his next start, at 3-1 in a stake, he improved his Beyer figure 9 points. The second place finisher, his Beyer figures were 74, 87. Then he got a 54 in this race, and then ran an 83 and a 77. It feels like that was an aberrational race that may have just come up very fast. He's down on the inside. That was his first race in almost a year. They shipped him down to Florida off that effort. Why would they? I mean, they could, obviously, they're not racing at Parks. They could have gone to New York, but they must have felt that he had some good race in to bring him all the way down here. They're running him at 7. He's, in some ways, the speed from the outside. I think he's got a very good chance here. He's got races last year that are okay, and if he can improve it all and he's dirtied up, I think he's going to beat these horses.
Well, he is a Florida bred, so it does make sense because this condition suits him very, very well, and this is a competitive position to put him in. The only thing, my only knock against this horse is I'm always apprehensive to pick horses that do very well at Parks, and really only Parks. I know you could argue that he ran well at Aqueduct, but he was beaten 11 lengths behind in a 5-horse field. So really, what do you make of that race? He needs to prove a little bit more to me in terms of putting him on top, because we have seen Parks is a very different surface than a track like Gulfstream. But if you're going to get a decent price, the 5 Holy Highway I thought was interesting. Last time out, really didn't run his race, but Defer Heaven, this horse has just been in fantastic form, and maybe he was just caught a little bit off guard. I thought he ran a good race behind Mitos and Leyendas a few starts back, who came back to run a really big race outside of that race as well.
Yeah, I thought Coal Miner had a shot off the Peter Walder claim. This is the kind of horse that has a race 2 back that's pretty good. I know he looks cheap as well, but I'm not going to discount horses that Walder claims. It's a tough race.
Race 3 on the card, a maiden special weight, 1 mile and a 16th out on the main track, and a big scratch of the 5 Direct Message in here, who figured to take a lot of money. We'll go back and take a look at 2 particular horses that come out of the same race, the 2 Mahesto and the 1 Happy's Causeway.
You know, in some ways, I thought Mahesto, I don't know that he ran the better race, but I don't know that he ran really worse, because I thought, you know, John Velasquez made a pretty aggressive early wide move. That's a day where you were probably better off being an outside mover, but still, I thought if you look at Happy's Causeway, sort of getting a ground saving and angling out trip and running behind that horse, in some ways, he might have gotten the better trip in there. Having said that, I still prefer Happy's Causeway, though I think they both can win. I don't know. How did you feel about these 2 horses in here, Gab?
Maybe I'm a little bit bitter about Mahesto.
In general, or about this race?
Excuse me. No, well, in general too. Mahesto, I don't know. I've given him plenty of opportunities to really showcase himself. I thought he ran such a good race behind Neolithic off the layoff there, and he just really hasn't panned out. That was a very discouraging performance when he ran against Gettysburg. I didn't see...
It was a race that was totally dominated by inside runners and on the front end, so he was a little behind. It was a bad race,
but he was
a little bit compromised.
Yeah, he was compromised, but it was bad. And I thought, again, last time out, I couldn't really jump on his bandwagon. I prefer the one Happy's Causeway in here. I'm going with a very odd horse.
That's true.
Because, I know, this horse very well could embarrass me today. But this is a type of horse that I always like to play. And I've done this angle plenty of times. Horses that are caught in a very tough position early, kind of dueling, chasing behind nice horses, and now getting a little bit more distance. He obviously has some speed, and he looks like a horse who will improve with distance. And I think when he gets to the 2 turns, he'll finally be able to settle. But that was a very tough race. He comes out of the Bolt Hall race. We saw Kelly Tough run very well out of that race as well. I just thought his hand was a kind of forced in that position, and it might turn out differently today.
Well, he's certainly a speed in here, though it feels like Speaker John can go, and also Dig Deep. And Dig Deep's a horse we have to talk about, a horse that I've played against, though used in my pick 5. But Dig Deep, I've got a stat here for trainer Alan Goldberg that I thought was pretty interesting. Second-time starter maiden stretching out from sprinter routes, just 1 for 13. And this is a horse, this horse ran sensationally in his first start, and I'm not going to be shocked when he wins this race, and I'm certainly not going to be shocked when he turns out to be a good horse. He took a lot of money that day, but now he's got post 9. At the very least, there's other speed with your horse in here, at the very least.
Yep.
And as you know, in these mile and eighth races, they hit that turn pretty quickly, so he's got to establish him, or he's going to get caught out in the outside, and it just doesn't feel like a race, in these races where unless you're that much the best, you can make a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
And I just feel like he's in a very tough spot for his second start. I think he's a good horse. I just don't know if today is the day I want him.
He was in a tough spot last time out, too.
He ran great last time.
He ran great. I mean, if you get a horse like that runs that way in debut, he dueled between horses, then he went down inside. He was dueling on the inside of horses, and he still hung on very well. I think he's a horse that has to be respected, but it's something to definitely consider, that outside post at a mile and a 16.
No, I agree. I'm throwing in collective wisdom. I do want to put up, and we should roll along a little faster, but Michael Dilger is 4 for 11 with first-time starters in dirt routes, including a horse at Gulfstream that paid $73. This is a tough spot to debut, but do not disregard this guy. He's dangerous in these spots.
Okay, race 4 starts the graded stakes action. The grade 3 Gulfstream Park Sprint, 6.5 furlongs onto the main track. The 5 XY Jet will take a look at last time out at his victory in the Sunshine Million Sprint.
You and I have talked about a lot. Obviously, XY Jet has been monstrous in his 2 recent races, and there are some speedy horses in here, but whether or not they can deal
Really
with his kind of speed, yeah, he's been exceptional. He's got to go 6.5. I'm going to try to beat him today. I'm using him in the pick 5, but I'm going to try to beat him. And for me, I didn't really want to make. I could have. I think Ready for Rye is the likeliest horse to beat him. He's got that big win at Gulfstream last year. But if I'm going to try to beat him, I'll just take the one that I think that Candip, who ran very well last time, Ready for Rye, and Via Mallorca are the 3 horses that can beat him. I think Via Mallorca is a very nice closing sprinter. Whether or not he's this good, whether or not he's ready off the layoff to do this, I don't have any illusions. He's a great bet in here. He's going to be a big price, and for that reason, I put him on top. I don't have a huge amount of confidence. I want to take a small shot.
Do you think XY Jet is the fastest early?
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Might be the fastest horse early on the entire ground.
And that is why I can't go against him. I don't take the 6.5 furlongs as an argument, because even before he really started getting good, he was effective at 7 furlongs. So, and I tried, trust me, I try to beat the favorite sometimes, and I tried to beat him. But the numbers for Ready for Rye and the numbers for the Tom Albatrani barn coming back with dirt sprinters off those types of layoffs aren't very strong. He's also a horse that likes to be effective closer to the lead, and he's not going to get that today. Can he sit in that chasing or stalking position behind a horse like XY Jet? Will the pace come back to a horse like Viva Mallorca? And this is another horse who we haven't seen since September.
If you're trying to beat XY Jet, you're taking a position that he's not going to run his race today. You're not really thinking about the 6.5 furlongs. You're more thinking whether or not he's going to keep showing up. He's been monstrous in these races, but they were dramatic improvements. He was okay last year. They were dramatic improvements. The question is whether you think at some point the genie's going back in the bottle. That's the only real question here, and I'm going to take a small shot against him. I'm not way against this horse. I just think today might be a decent day to take a shot.
Okay, race 5 on the card. We'll move on to the grade 2 Devonadale mile onto the main track. The one Thrilled is scratched in here. We'll take a look at Catherine Sophia and her romp in the grade 2 forward go.
And you want to watch the star of the race because I think it's important that people realize she really didn't get out of the gate in this race, and it's a little tricky with the angle in these races, but you can even see there that she's a little behind the field, and as the field settles out, she's a good 2 lengths behind them. It didn't matter. You can say she got a very good trip after that, and she did. But what she showed, which is very important, is that she can rate. I'm not sure you wouldn't be happy to see her get left a length in this race so she doesn't get caught up in the extreme speed of our Girls at Charmer and to a lesser extent Dearest.
She did everything that you want a horse to do, to be honest. I mean, look at her acceleration throughout the stretch. Yes, she is a little bit quirky, but she, with her leads and not switching her leads or switching her leads a couple times, that's something that she's done, even speaking to the connections to John Service. She always does. That's nothing to be worried about. She's just a very, very nice racehorse, and she's one of the favorites on the card. I simply couldn't make a case to go against her.
I completely agree with you. I think she's terrific. It might be heresy to suggest that she's a challenger to the mighty Songbird, but if she has one, Catherine Sophia's name is close. I'm a big Dearest fan, as are you, and I think if the pace comes apart, Lewis Bay has a chance to get a piece, but I'm not trying to beat Catherine Sophia.
Even if you look at Dearest's debut performance at Gulfstream Park West, and her last race was very impressive too because she kind of dueled and she was game, but even more so her debut because our Girls at Charmer went to the lead and her energy at the top of the stretch throughout the stretch was very good. I think she's a very good horse. Now, is she good enough to beat Catherine Sophia? Probably not, but she's definitely one to keep your eye on.
I'm not going to be surprised if Dearest is a player in races like the Test and that kind of race later this year. She's a good horse.
Race 6, the grade 3. Here comes the Bride, 1 mile and a 16th onto the turf course, and we'll go back and take a look at Catch a Glimpse. We haven't seen her since this victory. It was back in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, she's just been good in all of her races. I think the one question with Catch was 2 questions. Obviously, she's coming off a layoff, so she's got to be running her best race. But this is a horse that as soon as she got the turf, she was ready to roll on it. She's been good. The question is a firmer turf. She broke her maiden on a firm turf at Woodbine. Not as firm, of course, though, as the one she has at Gulfstream. And there was given the ground in Natalma. It was raining that day. I was actually up in Canada that day. And last time out, obviously, a much different turf course. So whether or not she'll be as effective on this course off a layoff is the one question. I believe she's enough better than these horses that she's going to overcome it.
All right. I agree with you. I think there was a couple questions. I don't think the layoff is primarily concerned, and she obviously, speed is dangerous here on any turf course, but especially here at Gulfstream, and she has that as a huge feather in the cap.
And nobody else to really run with her
Nobody else to really run with her, and I think there's a lot of positives with Catch a Glimpse. I'm just really interested in Lyra, and I wasn't a believer with her last time out in the Ginger Brew, but she's proven herself locally. She obviously likes this particular turf course, and yes, you can go one of 2 ways in the Ginger Brew. You could say that she got a very good trip. She was bumped around a little bit. She kind of just looks like a horse that wants to be bottled up, wants to be covered up, and just let explode. I thought Javier actually rode a perfect race on her. She draws a good inside post position, get a similar situation here today. I'm dubious to take a stand against Catch a Glimpse because I think she's very talented, but I do think she's probably the best alternate option.
At some point, perhaps I'll admit, if she strings together some more wins and if one scintilla of trouble comes in her face and she overcomes it. But in my opinion, Lyra has an exceptionally good trip. She had just a cakewalk up the inside, 2 back, and people are suggesting that she was caught in traffic last time. But she got out.
Yes, she got out.
And other horses had such tougher trips than she did. Module was 4 wide around the track, making a premature move. Price to Perfection didn't get into good position either, though she flattered when she came back to win. I thought of the maiden.
A lot of the times when horses are covered up like that and they explode, and then vice versa, when they're not in that situation anymore, we don't see that same acceleration. And I agree with you. I'm a little bit scared, but she proved me wrong last time out. She was very impressive. I like her today. The 3 gone away. She's interesting.
I don't think she was impressive. We're going to have to agree to disagree.
Okay.
I don't think she was impressive.
Well, we'll see. The 3 gone away. Talk to me about her.
You know, she's probably not going to get any pace to run it, and I know her race comes out, it was slow. I liked her race. I thought she really ran. Now, Verbowen, who she beat, did kind of move too soon, but she came back with a nice win in a subsequent start here. I took her over Hold Harmless, Hold Harmless got such a great ride last time out. She's a nice horse, but man, Rosario really made the difference on her last time.
And I remember I loved this horse last time out. And
it was a good field. She ran well, but she got a good trip.
She broke from the way outside. Joelle Rosario did such a fantastic job saving ground going into the first turn, really every turn. She's a full sister to Onus. I just think the barn really is high on her. We saw her paddock school yesterday. She's a very attractive filly. Talking to Shug McGahee, they were all here yesterday to watch her paddock school. So I think she's got some upside to her, but this is a very tough test.
Yeah, I think any horse, the 2, 3, and 5, all those horses, they will be better horses than Lyra going forward. I could end up being wrong.
Okay, race 7 on the card, an allowance optional claimer, 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. This is a very, very interesting race.
Well, there's no speed in here, and I think that at the end of the day, I'm going to guess that Off Limits, the Chad Brown, Martin Schwartz horse from Europe, who faced some nice horses over there getting Lasix, I think she's probably going to prove to be the best one of these horses. But you've got It's Only Acting Dad, who got the bad post, Sparkle Factor, who got a bad post, Royal Temptress, who's coming off a big trip, but probably not good enough to beat these and got post 13. There's no speed in here, and at the end of the day, I just couldn't ignore Gap Year. She was bad last time. I will not argue against that, but you know what? Maybe Kieran's Barn's going a little stronger right now. Sometimes the later part of the meet, his horses run a little bit better, and she's run well enough in the past. I'm giving her one more chance to wire the field.
Okay, the 12, It's Only Acting Dad. What do you do with this filly? We have an interesting stat for the Todd Pletcher barn, which we will show. I believe we used my stat. We sent in the same stat. Over the past 5 years with these types of layoffs on the turf, going around a ground at Gulfstream, 38%, a positive ROI there. He just does so well with these horses.
I'm not going to be surprised when she runs well. I mean, her second Lady Eli says it all. She got a nice trip in there, but she ran very well. She's okay. She's got a lousy post, a very hard race. Coming attraction. Okay.
I went with some weird horses today.
That's
and honestly, Coming Attraction, yes, okay, her A Other Than race, 2 starts back at Belmont back in October, was just okay. She had full opportunity to win that race behind Tammy the Torpedo. There was a pace setter in there. The pace kind of collapsed. There were actually 2 horses dueling in front. Tammy the Torpedo, I think, was 7-5 and just kind of galloped out from the rest of the field. But her race, coming back off the layoff, I know it was on the main track. Javier never even asked her, and I'm wondering if she can improve and if she's going into this season. I thought that race was so impressive. He never asked her. She was down on the inside, and she just kind of exploded. Now going back to, in my opinion, a more preferred surface, she might just be a tricky horse.
Yeah, I think her dirt race, she just beat a bunch of bad horses or not turf horses. Listen, she's going to be well placed. You know, Javier's going to get her in the game. She's got natural speed. I just couple low, but listen, I didn't throw her out. I think there's a lot more unlikely horse than her, and she's going to be a big price. So why would I knock her?
And what about the 2 Miss Atomic Bomb? I liked her a little bit last time out. She still had a little bit of give in the ground, though, and that's exactly what she got on the yielding course before the layoff.
No, before she ran like a bog of bogs. I think that's a very good point about her. She's the kind of horse you have to be careful with because she's a trip horse, but she got herself into a tough spot here for a return race. But she's okay.
Okay, that's races 1 through 7. Our pick 6 starts in today's 8th race on the card. We do have a nice carryover just shy of $1.9 million. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the sequence. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now taking a look at the pick 6. Once again, we have a carryover just shy of $1.9 million. And I did come up with a little bit of a ticket. No singles today. I didn't single on Mohamed, but we'll go through the ticket here. 3-8, just using 2 horses to start us off. I had a tough time with race 10, primarily because there's no pace in the race. So I'm using several different horses in that leg of the sequence there, but using 3 horses in race 9, 2 in race 11, 2 race 12, and capping it, obviously our feature race of the day at the Fountain of Youth, and race 13, just using 2 horses as well. A cheap, affordable $48 ticket. We'll talk about race 8 to kick it all off, though, the Canadian Turf, a mile on the turf. We have the likes of Long on Value, who won this race last year. We have the 2 Divisadero, who's coming back as a 4-year-old, and we also have the likes of Heart to Heart to the outside. It's a very, very good race.
Yeah, Heart to Heart is the horse to beat. I think as we show Heart to Heart, I think are we showing Heart to Heart's last race in the Fort Lauderdale?
We are.
He was able to control last time. Nobody went with him. Fredericksburg was completely rated. Now they're putting blinkers on, so I wonder if they'll be a little bit more aggressive with Fredericksburg. And also Not a Cat But a Llama. Not a Cat But a Llama has no chance to win this race if they take him back. Does he have a chance to win if they go? Well, he ran okay last time, so I think he's got to go. John's got to be aggressive with him. So Heart to Heart might be in a position where he has to stalk and win. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but he's a much better horse when, as my friend Jason likes to say, he gets to let his hooves rattle. I'm wondering if it's going to happen today, and I'm going to take a small shot against him, though my top choice, Tower of Texas, came out fairly late. I like Long on Value as a horse. He was compromised by a slow pace in his last race in June. Bill Mott's running him aggressively. He obviously wants to move from this race like the Maker's Mark, where he ran pretty well when he changed his running style and went to the front. He won this race last year and thought ran very well. I'm taking a shot, as you are, that the 8 may have to rate, and this might be a good time to try to beat him.
Well, even talking about Heart to Heart and why he doesn't really run well in that rating gear is because he does seem like a horse that's a little bit heavy-headed. And Julian Leparoux was actually talking about it prior to the win last time out, that if you don't have the ability to get him to the lead and settle him and relax him, he has an opportunity to just kind of act up a little bit in the stages of the race. He does draw that outside post position. I think that's going to help him if that's the case. But Long on Value, I really like. Bill Mott's numbers off these types of layoffs, horses coming back against in graded stakes even, are very, very good. His race last time out, last year in the Canadian Turf, he even made the lead a little bit prematurely, and I don't even know if that's his particular running style. It doesn't look like that's how he wants to be ridden. In all considering, I thought he ran a really, really big race. I think Florent Giroux fits this horse to a T. I like him a lot today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Divisadero does in here, as well as the horse that you have third, Avanzari, and we should roll along here. But these are both talented horses. Whether or not they're going to be able to get it done today at a mile is another question. I'd love to see Avanzari get it back, and obviously Divisadero, a horse who was very good last year. Yeah. Tough spot for a return, though.
Looking to the Sand Springs, a mile on the turf, and very interesting race here. We have horses that are coming from all aspects here. Hope Cross, Partisan Politics come out of the same race in the Marshallwood River. There's a lot going on in this race.
I agree. And I think your top 2 choices are the 2 horses to beat. Celestine's not going to be able to just control the race on the inside, but she doesn't need the lead to win. She loves this course. I thought she ran well last time. Tammy Torbia's a nice horse. Partisan Politics, I think, is the horse to beat in here, but she's got a little hang in her. And, I'm not convinced. She's going to have to get over the hump at some point and start winning these races.
And looking at Hope Cross and Partisan Politics, obviously they come out of the same race behind Sandiva. Who did you think put in the stronger effort out of those 2?
Partisan Politics. I didn't like the ride the horse got in that race, to be honest with you. I thought he lost position early. I'm betting Elusive Collection this race, and I'm happy to sort of live and die with this horse. Actually, I have a pick 5 that we didn't put up. We should put up fairly quickly. I am using, I believe, 1, 3, and 8 to start it out in this race. I'm going to single in the next race because the other horse I was using was scratched. It's a smaller ticket, taking some shots in there. We'll go through the sequences. We don't have a lot of time. Elusive Collection has run very well in all of the synthetic races, getting legitimate figures, running fast races. Obviously has to get a mile and has to like the turf. But as a synthetic horse, you always feel like there's that chance they'll transfer it to the turf. Josie Carroll's having a very good meet. This horse is a second foal from a dam who's a half to 4 turf winners out of 5 to try the turf, including the Mighty Winter Memories. This is a sensational turf family, and this horse has a giant amount of pedigree. And I'm hoping if she steps toward the turf, I think she can beat them. She's not meeting any killers, and today's the day to get her at a price if she's a turf horse.
Okay, and that is the 3 elusive collection. The only thing that I did find on the barn, Josie Carroll has done a fantastic job. You see with her turf horses so far at the meet, including winning graded stakes. Overall, though, we'll take a look at this stat over the past 5 years, synthetic to turf at Gulfstream. Just 1 for 16, but they do run into the money. It's almost like they need one race outside of their synthetic performances, going to the turf, and then they continue to improve on the turf.
He's a 10-to-1 shot. I don't care about her stats.
Okay.
But, you know, I hear you, but it's just not. Listen, there's a lot of things going against her. She's got to improve to beat these horses.
The one, Celestine, again, I just think that she is tactically positioned to the inside. What a race she ran last time out, and I stick with her once again today. We are running out of the time. 10th race on the card, an allowance, optional claimer. And I found it interesting that you did single the 5 go around.
Well, I was using the 5 and 12, but the 12 scratched, and I decided to single to keep the ticket smaller.
And that's the way you have to go, though. You either have an opinion on this or you can go with several different horses. I had a tough time with this race primarily because there is no pace in here.
I agree. It's a very tricky race. Now, the 3, Sabato Alegre, is supposed to go to the lead. I have to think that Mott and Giroux understand the lack of pace, and this horse is not fast early, but is fast enough to put himself into position. And this is a horse that improved substantially. That win at Saratoga was giant on August 1st. When he came back on September 5th, that was a time when the course had gotten extremely firm, and that was a race that was dominated by horses with inside position. And this horse was wide around the racetrack, so I thought ran very well against it. Then they came back 2 weeks later at Laurel. And you can't expect that the horse is going to necessarily run as well. And he didn't run as well. He didn't run terribly, but he didn't run as well. He's been off for a while since then. I think there's a chance to go around ends up being a stakes quality horse. Today's the day to get him.
I thought he was up against it because One Go All Go was just a horse that went out to the front end and just went gate to wire. There was really nobody to contest him in that race, and he was kind of left behind spinning his wheels. But will he be caught in a similar position today? They have to get a little bit aggressive with him. The 14 Tapitation, I didn't know what to do with this horse from the outside. I think he's very talented. He's been known to be close to a slow early pace. What is the strategy going to be? They either have to get him into the game early, get into position, or have to completely take him out of his wheelhouse and off the pace.
His post compromises his chances too much for me. He's obviously in good form. I wouldn't be shocked if he won, but to me, the post compromises him.
Okay, we'll move on to the 11th race, the Grade 3 Palm Beach, and this is a tricky race. We have a couple of horses who are exiting the Kitten's Joy last time out, and we'll actually take a look at, or we won't take a look at that race, but I took an approach to this race even with the presence of Azar in. I didn't think that the Kitten's Joy was very legitimate, so I took an approach to go against it.
I agree. I don't want the horses out of that race. I completely agree with you. There's too many horses in this race that have a right to move forward. Why don't you talk about Scholar Athlete, and if I have anything to add, I'll add to it.
Scholar Athlete was, I thought, compromised by a very slow pace early last time out, going 7.5 furlongs. And we'll actually go back and take a look at the replay. He was 4 or 5 wide going into the first turn because of that outside post position.
He's the 11 in this race.
Did I say 11?
No, he is. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. He's from that outside post position. You can see him in the West Point Thoroughbred colors, the yellow with the black star in there. He tried, the rider, Joel Rosario, tried to save ground, just absolutely no hope. Sometimes that happens at 7.5 furlongs, that short run into the first turn. He was wide going into that turn, tried to get this horse to settle a little bit. We saw
he's 5th right now on the outside.
He's 5th on the outside. A very weird thing going on the front end between the 5 and the 7 on the front end. He was wide going into the final turn, but his energy throughout the stretch and even beyond that, I thought was very good behind kind of a slow early pace.
I agree. I think it's remarkable that he finished a closing third near, considering the pace dynamics of 2 stablemates setting a very, very slow pace with his wide trip and closing. He's got to run faster, but I thought this was a real step in the right direction for him and a sign that he could be able to move forward. And once again, today's the day to play him. Other horses I want to use, obviously Urban Bourbon that you have second, ran well last time. Another horse who had a wide trip, 4 wide most of the way around the track. Converge. I like the line a friend of mine used to me. Jose Ortiz wrote him last time like he thought he was in the Melbourne Cup. He was so far out of it, I don't understand what he was doing. He really dropped back sharply. He made a significant run, this horse. And the horse who won was a nice Todd Pletcher horse. Didn't pan out, but it was his turf debut, and that was a race where he dominated in the front end. This horse made a big run. I think Converge is a big player in here.
Giant Run, you and I were speaking about this horse pretty much all along, especially when he came back and finally got to the turf last time out and beat Inspector Lindley, who would come back to win. He is a stakes quality horse, I think, but this is a very big step up in class.
I agree, but I'm not going to be surprised when he runs well. It's going to be a fast pace, but he could well be setting it, and he's a dangerous horse. He ran a good race last time.
Okay, we'll go to the 12th race on the card, our feature race of the day, the ExpressBet.com Grade 2 Fountain of Youth, a mile and a 16th on the turf. Of course, we'll go back and take a look at Mohamen in the Holy Bull.
We always have these horses. It's the M.
Taught me well.
It's the M horses whose names they keep changing their names on us. Mohamen is the leader right now, along with Nyquist. And Nyquist's 3-year-old debut was extremely good. You could argue that he's the leader right now with Mohamen. They don't want him to be running huge, fast race. Their point, their feeling is that, you run a big race, it might sap him for later. Whether or not that ends up being the case, I don't know. I didn't think he took a giant step forward from his 2-year-old year, and that's a concern for me, whether or not he's got that improvement in him. We're going to need to see it at some point. Maybe they're saving for the Derby. Maybe it'll happen. But if you look at this race, Gabby, I couldn't pick against him. There's too much sort of dynamics, or too much in his favor with the speed inside of him, and he should be in a perfect stalking spot.
You look at the likes of a horse like Awesome Speed. You look at the likes of a horse like Awesome Banner. These two horses are very fast. We even see a horse like the 2 Zulu, who has a lot to prove.
Let's talk about him.
Zulu. Okay, we'll go back and we'll take a look at his race there on the 15th of January. Andy, I thought just everything went this horse's way. It was a small field. He was well posted to the outside. He really just stayed in the clear, never got dirt in his face. And plus, this is the first time he's actually going to be tested down on the inside on a fast main track.
I agree. I mean, if you like Zulu in here, you're saying he's going to be able to deal with the speed of Awesome Banner and Awesome Speed in here. He's going to put those horses away, and then he's going to hold off Mohamen. If you like him, you really don't like Mohamen, because I think you really have to be saying, I just don't think Mohamen's going to show up, or he's that whatever, because I don't see how he can beat the Mohamen that we've seen. Now, in fairness to Zulu, who obviously I'm not a big fan of, he's never been on a dry track. Maybe he'll improve on a dry track. He did beat Sharp Azteca in his debut, who's a very promising horse, so I don't think we're going to be surprised when he turns to be good. We don't really know what he can do, but based on what he's done, he's not good enough to beat these horses.
And yes, I agree with you. The dynamics of the race also highly compromise him, where it's the complete opposite for a horse like Mohamen. So I agree with you. If you're taking a stand against, if you like Zulu, you have to really not like Mohamen. That said, besides Mohamen in here, there are some interesting horses, and Awesome Speed, I think you like a little bit more than I do.
I don't know what to do with him. I didn't love his last race. I don't like the horses he beat, but he's had time since then, and I think he's the one I could use as my backup, because I don't want Zulu. Fellowship may clunk up for a piece. He might even get second, but I don't think that he's a contender to win unless the race just completely falls apart. Mohamen doesn't show up. I don't like Awesome Banner in here to wire the field. I think he's been terrific, but he's had things very much go his way in his races, and I just think trying to get him 2 turns when he's going to face some challenges into race, I don't blame them. I think it's the right time to take a shot with him going 2 turns. I just don't believe he's going to turn out to be a router.
We very well could see, but the interesting thing about Awesome Banner and last time out in the Swale was that Jose Caraballo, it almost looked like at the quarter pole, he encouraged him a little bit, tried to get him into gear. And I don't know really how to explain this correctly, but it looks like a horse that will actually fare better getting longer distances and being able to relax, utilize his speed at longer distances. So you and I are kind of not on the same bandwagon here, but I think he's a very good horse. And I know you really haven't been on his bandwagon in the past couple of starts.
There's no question about it. I've been dead wrong about this horse. And listen, I think there's a fair argument that if the favorite loses, he is the likeliest horse to beat him simply because he's going to wire the field. You know, you don't have to worry about it. All the other horses are going to be trying to catch up to him, and he's going to have speed. So, you could be in my camp or your camp. There are 2 different camps, but I cannot dispute the argument that he simply is the most likely horse to beat Mohamen, because I don't think you're beating Mohamen from behind. Yes. I think you're beating him from in front of him. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can understand that argument.
Okay. Enough said. about the Grade 2 Fountain View. It's a great race.
No, it
though,
really is. It's
honestly,
an exciting
I think
race.
there's a lot going on in it, which makes it all the more interesting because horses like Awesome Speed, Awesome Banner, who have the speed, Zulu, a couple of questions that he has to answer. Mohamed, after the Holy Bull, the thing about Mohamed last time out though in the Holy Bull, he did it so easily that I'm wondering if they actually do really ask him. He showed a new level of versatility, in my opinion. I know you don't think that he took a tremendous step forward.
He's been versatile in all his races. I don't.
Everything, yeah. Whatever he's been asked to do, he's responded very well with.
I'm not knocking Mohamed. I just, he was 4-1 in the Derby pool, and to me, that's a ridiculous price to be taking on him at this point. Because even when he wins today and wins the Florida Derby, you got Nyquist. Well, I guess he'd beat Nyquist in the Florida Derby and all things. But even if things go well, how short? American Pharoah paid $7 for in the Derby. We got to get the last race out of here. We'll talk about it later. Larry's here. I picked Billy's Kitten in the last race on top. If that horse could be 4-1 in its debut against the likes of Giant Run and Inspector Lindley, there's a big story. He didn't run well that day, but I believe that he's going to come back and run the money he took. I went 4-1 too.
Okay, I used the 1 and the 4 in the final leg of the pick 6. I thought the 1 American Patriot, he was a decently bet in debut, but this is a horse who I thought he was compromised by a little bit by slow early fractions, and then he never really got a full run until late. So I think the dynamics of the race, he could definitely move forward, now stretching out to 1 1/8 miles.
I have no problem with that horse. Put him second.
Okay, that's a wrap. 1 through 13. We did a lot of talking in a short amount of time. And that just speaks
Unlike usually.
That just speaks volumes of the competition on this card.
Right.
There's so many betting opportunities. There's so many good races today as well.
This is what you want as a horse player.
Yes.
You want opportunities. You want to have a chance, if you have a good opinions, to make money. And that is exactly what today's card offers from start to finish.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Larry Colmus is waiting in the wings to give you those scratches and changes, but we'll be back all afternoon to talk more about it. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today, and we'll see you in just a little bit.
Our day begins early, preparing for the task ahead.